All right, hi there, everyone. Welcome to Believe in Bills, coming out of the bye week edition here, a special Monday edition. We hope you all enjoyed the bye weekend. Did you say you had a little downtime, didn't you?
I did. Adam, it's my favorite week of the year. It always is. It's not Christmas or, anything. My favorite week of the year is when the Bills aren't playing, so I don't have to be writing 10 stories. So I enjoyed that gratefully this past weekend.
Yep. A little downtime, same here. A lot of projects around the house, that sort of thing, but enjoyable to relax a little bit, and especially I think for Bills fans, right, when they're at 9-2. And we had talked about, and we weren't even really only half kidding in the midst of this stretch, that the division race legitimately, from a mathematical standpoint, could be over by Thanksgiving. And the simple fact of the matter is that it could be just on the backside of the holiday. One of the scenarios, the Dolphins lost to the Packers on Thanksgiving Day, combined with a Bills win over the 49ers. And for the fifth year in a row, they would be AFC East champions. That's not really a revelation for fans at this point. But when you think about the questions that kind of loomed over this team leading into the season, it's pretty incredible that they've been so dominant and are set to close this thing out.
Yeah, we referenced it even as early as last week that I'm still surprised by the 9-2 record. I just didn't expect this team. I thought this roster was a little bit less than even the team last year, and I did not expect to see the coming together of this team, how their depth has been tested and has come through in a lot of big spots. We just saw that against the Chiefs. They were without three key guys on offense, and they barely blinked and beat an unbeaten team without those three guys. So it's been very impressive how they've been able to, and we've also referenced this, how we both, I think, agree that Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott have built a program here. And it's not so much where you rebuild year to year. You're literally just tweaking things with this team year to year because they've got everything. The system is in place, and the guys that don't start are ready to step in when their number's called. And there might be a little bit of a drop-off in some cases, but usually it's not. Usually there's not a huge drop-off. Sure, you could say Dorian Williams is a bit of a drop-off from all-pro Matt Milano, but look what Dorian Williams has done this year. Quite honestly, have they even missed Matt Milano? They haven't. Hard to believe that, but he hasn't played for 13 months. I don't even miss him at this point because they filled in so well. And that's what the Bills have been able to do right along here. And it really has come to fruition in this particular season where we thought it was a step back here, and they've actually taken a step up.
Yeah, really. And speaking to that system, we hear that word culture, right? And it's somewhat cliche, the process, all of those things that have existed, those words are used, in the McDermott Beane era, but you see them come to fruition. And it has to do with the type of players they're drafting, not only in terms of talent, but in terms of character. And then it has to do with preparation. And this is, to me, where you can factor coaching into the mix in a very significant way. When you talk about what happens in those meeting rooms and the depth, so you have quality depth, but they're also prepared because of the environment they're in terms of the coordinators, and it all emanates from Sean, of course. But the fact they're able to step in and not just be physically ready, but from an X's and O's standpoint and mental aspect, ready to step in and contribute as well. I think that's where you don't see the degree of drop-off that you might with other teams and in other situations.
Yeah, look what's happened this year. Terrell Bernard, one of their best players on defense, undoubtedly. He goes out, and Balin Spector stepped in. Balin Spector, who's, a seventh-round pick, who really hasn't done much of anything in the league, stepped in and was at least reasonably able to fill in that spot. Was he Terrell Bernard? No. But were they drastically were they drastically worse with Balin Spector on the field? No. Christian Benford missed a game. Kyer Elam, a former first-round pick, who clearly has been, I'm not going to say a bust, but he's been a pretty big disappointment, stepped right in. You never even knew the difference. Benford's one of the best cornerbacks in the league this year, and it didn't even seem like they missed him all that much in that game. Dawson Knox for Dalton Kincaid last week. Ryan Vandermark for Spencer Brown last week. We can go on and on here, and it's just been impressive to me how outside of the one shitty game against Baltimore, and that was horrible. They were so bad that day. They've been a very, very, very good team right through. Even the Houston game, Adam, that's a game they can look back on now and really be pissed off that they blew because I don't think Houston is very good. That's a game they should have won. They should be right now 10-1 because there's been no lucky win in this run. I mean, they beat the Dolphins on a 61-yard field goal, but if he had missed, it was going to overtime. Who knows? There hasn't been one fluky win on this schedule, and one of the losses was kind of inconceivable as we look back on it now.
All right, so I got a quick word from the sponsor here, and then I want to talk about the fact that there is reason for optimism down the stretch. This team is going to be getting healthier as they prepare to face the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday Night Football this week. First, Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. The largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, NHL, college hoops, as well as the UFC and MMA. Head to the website, Bet Online. The game starts here. And that's what really, as they emerge, the timing of this bye week could not have been better. But you think about Keon Coleman. You think about Dalton Kincaid. You think about Spencer Brown. Then there's the Matt Milano, which is kind of a separate issue and topic, but he's going to be getting back into the mix soon. The fact that at least the first three of those players, the expectation is that they're back possibly this week. We don't know for sure. There's no Monday Zoom this week, an update from Sean McDermott, but the expectation is that at least 1, 2, or 3 of them might actually be back in the lineup. And think about how healthy this team can and will be at the most critical point now of the regular season.
Yeah, it is unusual that they're going to be going into week 13 and they're not going to really have much of an injury report. Now, we don't know for sure. It felt like Spencer Brown was probably close to playing last week, and they decided because they have the bye week, there's no reason to push it, even though it was against the Chiefs. There was no reason to push that one. Keon Coleman, I don't know. They didn't put him on injured reserve, which was always a good sign. And now I think we're in that 4-week window that he's been out, so he's probably going to be good to go. Although we said that earlier in the year about Taron Johnson not going on IR, and it ended up being, I think, at least 2 weeks after the 4-week window. But we'll see on Coleman. And then who's Kincaid? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, we don't know how severe these injuries are. The Bills do not give us, as you know, Adam, they don't give us much information on the severity of these things, but it feels like he'll be good to go as well. So I think we're just waiting on Milano. I think we talked about last week how, I think what's going to happen there. First of all, they wouldn't have opened his 21-day window when they did, encompassing the bye week, if they didn't think he was pretty close. So I think we're going to see a move later this week where he gets on the active roster, and then they're going to slowly ramp him up. I would expect that Dorian Williams will start the game and probably play the bulk of it, and I think they'll rotate Milano in probably on third down or on passing downs because that's what he does much better than Dorian Williams. And then as we go, he'll get more and more playing time. Remember, it's been 13 months since he's been on the field playing. That's a humongous break. So it's going to take a little bit of time. And I guess I would point to Detroit maybe as the game where you get him back in, maybe into a full 100 snap count or 100% snap count type of thing. But again, we'll see. I don't know on injuries. It's always tough to predict.
Yeah, and especially coming out of a bye week like this when you don't have any type of reference. Right. You can't even read between the lines when you've heard from a Sean McDermott or have been in the locker room and those types of things. So we'll see when they get back on the practice field on Wednesday. But as for Milano, I'm sure you get a lot of questions about him, Sal, from fans, and as do I, when we're going to see him, what type of shape will he be in. And I go back, I know we've mentioned this before, but I think it probably bears repeating here that you're really dealing with the recovery from 2 injuries there, right? You're talking about the torn bicep, but there's the leg injury from last year's loss to the Jaguars in London that in training camp, when we had Dr. David Chow on, the former Chargers team physician, when the news on Milano initially broke, he made the point that there was a silver lining in the fact that he felt like they might be rushing him back on that leg just a little bit, right? Yeah. So that he has had some additional time to not only deal with the bicep injury, but continue to rehab that leg. So when he does transition back into game shape and those types of things, there's every reason to believe you're talking about 100% healthy Matt Milano to the degree that he can be. I think that's a significant aspect when you look at this.
Yeah, I think he's going to be in good shape. He's not going to be in, game playing shape. That is a little bit different than doing all the work on the side and working the treadmill and whatever else he's doing, the conditioning drills that he's going through. But I think he's going to be pretty close to ready when they get him out there. And I think they'll just play it safe because they need him in January, right? They don't want to rush him back in December when they've got a 4.5 game lead in the division. And yes, I know they're playing for that number 1 seed, number 2 at worst. So these games are all critically important. You can't just throw away games and not worry about, well, we don't need Milano now. They do need him, but I think it's important to do it a little bit cautiously, get him ramped up, don't throw him right back in there immediately. So hopefully he is really in the best shape he can be and ready to play when January comes around. That's going to be big. And it's, it's important. We've talked about this, how it was unfortunate last year that they had that injury, that run of injuries at the end of the season that crippled them going into the playoffs. I mean, that we've said this. The Chiefs game was a game they probably win if they had their full complement of players. So you can't predict injuries. It's a brutally brutal game that they play, and who knows what's going to happen in these 6 weeks, but at least they're starting December when they take the field, December 1st against the 49ers, as healthy as they could possibly be. And that's a good sign for the Bills.
Speaking of the matchup with the 49ers, let's look ahead. It'll be on Channel 2 and NBC in Buffalo Sunday Night Football. Another primetime game for the Bills, who have more than earned those appearances, and with the especially coming off the win over the Kansas City Chiefs with Josh Allen and the epic 4th down touchdown run. I mean, the interest and the optimism surrounding this team is as high as it's been during the course of the regular season. And they have an opportunity now against a talented San Francisco 49ers team, but they're reeling right now. So the timing might be right. I mean, what the hell is going on with San Francisco?
Yeah, well, they've been, unlike the Bills. Well, I shouldn't say that the Bills had injuries. They've had some tough injuries. They played Green Bay with one hand tied behind their back. They didn't have Brock Purdy, who's their quarterback. They didn't have their best pass rusher in Nick Bosa. Their all-pro left tackle, Trent Williams. They also were missing a starting cornerback, Trevarius Ward. That's 4 pretty important players on that team. Plus, Christian McCaffrey has been back for 3 weeks now after missing the first half of the season, and he really hasn't found his sea legs yet. So they were really shorthanded in that game up at Lambeau. And I'm not going to say it was predictable that they lost by 4 touchdowns, but it was pretty easy to see a Green Bay win before that game started. Now, this week, I've kind of looked into it today on the web and looked at some San Francisco reports. It seems like all 4 of those guys have a chance to play this week, Purdy in particular. They really held out Purdy more as a precautionary thing. I think if that had been a playoff game, for instance, I think he would have been able to play. But it is a regular season game. They didn't want to push it. But I think he'll be back. That'll make a big difference because Brandon Allen is, Brandon Allen. So I think this is going to be a much different team coming to Buffalo that went up to Green Bay. Very tough game for the Bills. Plus, as we've talked about during the year, Adam, the Bills have faced a few teams that are in desperation mode, right? This is going to be one that's really in that mode because this is the defending NFC champion. And they're sitting 5-6. The caveat, though, is they're only 1 game out of first place in their own division, and they're very much in the mix in the NFC wildcard because the NFC is not very good this year. There's a lot of middling to below average teams. So they're still at 5-6, coming off a 28-point loss, right in the mix. They're going to be motivated, and if they get some of these guys back, tough game for the Bills for sure.
And they, understanding the injuries, right? But I mean, I think my question was in reference to if you listen and follow that team season at all, and I've listened to some podcasts and read some reports out of the Bay Area, the inconsistency has defined that team this year relative to the talent that's on that roster. But as you said, I mean, if things are coming kind of back together and we know that talent is there, look, this is a Bills team. I guess it goes back to our original point about the culture and the system. I've never been concerned about a Bills team looking past is too strong a word, but they've been focused and in the moment. That's been one of the defining characteristics under Sean McDermott as head coach.
Yeah, you're right. So, I mean, yeah, the 49ers are going to come in here highly motivated and dangerous, but yeah, I'm not saying the Bills are going to be, scared by that. The Bills have met just about every challenge this season, and they're playing at home. Yeah, they haven't lost at home this year. That always matters for the Bills. I looked it up since the start of 2020. They're 32-6 in the regular season at the whatever they call that place now, Highmark Stadium. So that's pretty impressive. That's not counting the game in London, which was technically a home game. 32-6 in Orchard Park, and several of those games have been primetime, big windows. So yeah, the Bills aren't gonna cower to this challenge, but it will be a tough game. There's no doubt. People should not see San Fran's record at 5-6 and think it's going to be a breeze, or have watched them yesterday and how badly they played and think the Bills are going to roll in this game. I don't think that'll be the case at all.
Well, it's also worth pointing out how effective and successful the Bills have been coming out of a bye week under Sean McDermott.
7-0. Right? They have not lost.
7-0.
That's impressive.
A lot of things trending in the right direction. And so that's where things stand right now in terms of this team. As for our schedule this week, it's going to be pretty much as usual. Wednesday, they will have practice and availability, so we'll come your way Wednesday afternoon after Josh Allen and some of the others have spoken, hopefully have some injury updates. Working on a guest from the NBC talent staff for later in the week, looking ahead to the San Francisco game. And so, it's Thanksgiving. We're going to have a nice, relaxing day on Thursday. We hope everyone has a happy, healthy, and safe Thanksgiving. But it's back to work for us. Right, Sal? Bye week's over.
Bye week is over. I'm sad, but, get right back into the grind here.
All right. Look forward to it. For Sal Maiorana on the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, I am Adam Benigni, WGRZ TV, Sports Talk Live, Buffalo. We will see you Wednesday here on Believe in Bills.